But do you guys have confidence in the newly elected cabinet secretaries to deliver on the job? You can participate, send in your questions, send in your comments on 22162, starting with the word news. Our Twitter handle at Christine Kai at Y254 channel. The hashtag is Y254 updates. My name is Christine Kai. I would like to welcome my guest tonight. I will start from my immediate. Of course, we have Stanley, who we've seen a couple of times here. Stanley Nyachai, who is a lawyer. Welcome, Stanley. All right. And then we have Ruth Ambogo, who is a political analyst.
Thank you.
Right. And then we have Moses Mutanda, who is also a lawyer tonight. Thank you so much, guys, for coming.
Thank you for hosting us.
All right. So we just start by, giving our opinions on your feel of the newly appointed cabinet secretaries. What did you feel once you had certain names given certain dockets? What was your feel? Let's start with ladies first.
For me, well, I will definitely begin to talk about the gender aspect of it all. We expected to see the president basically conform to the two-third gender principle in terms of the numbers of the women he would appoint to the cabinet secretary positions, which was not exactly the case, because if you are to go by not more than two-thirds of the same being of the same gender at appointive positions, then we should have had at least 9 women appointed to the cabinet secretary positions. When the president was running his campaigns last year, one of the promises he made to the women was that he would strive to have a 50-50% cabinet. At one point, he actually made that statement. So when we see the numbers still staggering way below the 33% requirement, then we get worried as women. And again, interestingly, for me, I think on the other side, I see a lot more women appointed at the cabinet. Is it chief assistant? Is it chief assistant secretaries, chief administrative secretaries, as well as the permanent secretaries? I'm seeing a good number of women in those positions. Then also to generally comment, generally speaking, the women appointed as cabinet secretaries, I think, were selected the women selected were highly skillful women, women who have proper backgrounds to hold the various positions they've been given. So for me, generally, when I look at it from the women aspect, that's all I have to say. Yeah.
All right. Moses, what was your feel?
Okay, I'll start by my take on this is we shouldn't delve on the issue of cabinet administrative secretary and principal secretary, simply because a petition has been filed in court today. The matter is before a judge, so we cannot delve into the merit of the appointments because it's a matter that's still pending before the courts. There is an issue that we call sub judice. You cannot discuss it. So we should limit our discussions to the cabinet secretaries alone. So if I'm to say on the issue of cabinet secretary, as my sister puts it, that not more than two-thirds of them are supposed to be from the same gender. But however, what I would like to tell you is that these constitutional provisions cannot be achieved immediately. They are progressive. We are progressing towards achieving that constitutional provision of having many more women in the cabinet. So with time, it will come to a time whereby you'll see more women than men in this cabinet appointment.
Right. I bet Ruth wants to say something on that. But let's give Stanley first a chance to say his take on the appointment.
Let me get to the program before Ruth fights back. I'd like to speak about two things, and firstly, I'd like to. I disagree with my sister in the essence that the cabinet is balanced. For me, I think we've lost it because now we've gone full cycle to the Moi era of politicians running the cabinet, and with the new constitution that we had given ourselves, we had the idea was to have technocrats, and we were told that the cabinet secretaries are not going to be politicians; they're going to assist the president to deliver on the campaign promises, and they will separate themselves from that issue. What we are seeing now is the reverse opposite. You're having people appointed merely for the sake of politics. Secondly, when you have and I will give this in terms of illustration. It is expected that if you go to school for 4 years, you study law, then you go to Kenya School of Law, you get your diploma, then you practice, you have an illustrious career, you make it all the way to the Director of Public Prosecutions, Kiriako Tobiko. What happens? You get thrown in the Ministry of Environment. What does he know about the environment? Farida Karane, brilliant
Media.
journalist, media powerhouse, then she finds herself in lands. What does she know about lands? So I think there's an expectation, there's a legitimate expectation on we, the population, that the leaders that were being given are qualified for the tasks for which that have been handed to them. So I'm really skeptical about the idea of just throwing in people everywhere. And they don't seem to be qualified unless there's something that we don't know. Yeah.
All right. Since Stanley has brought up the issue of mismatch, we can start, of course, with that. Do you feel that there's any mismatches in who's been placed where?
You know, for me, I'd want to agree with him partly and disagree with him again partly, because I think there are few people we would complain about their lack of compatibility with the kind of departments they've been given. I mean, if we could trust Matiang'i to hold the education department, and now we are still trusting him to hold the position of the Interior Cabinet Secretary without complaints, without complaints about it, then I don't see why we should complain about the entire cabinet being mismatched. Then again, the question of, must a leader necessarily study for that which they have been appointed for? In the past cabinet, we saw persons who did not necessarily have a background in whatever departments they had been allocated to or assigned to, and yet they still delivered. So I think it's also the question of, if that's the argument we are going to go about, then we should then have the requirement that if we are voting for leaders, we should vote for leaders who all went to school and studied political science or something of the sort, you know. But then again, I also have to agree with him to an extent that some of those people are properly mismatched, and not just mismatched. Some of them have been removed from departments where they did not necessarily perform as per the expectations that we did have of them, and now they have been given very serious departments. No offense, someone like the former DPP being given the position of the Environment Cabinet Secretary, and yet we have lots of Kenyans who generally feel that even at the time when he was the deputy, the chief prosecutor, he did not perform his duty as per the expectations. So one wonders, are these cabinet secretary appointments just a matter of awarding who was loyal, or who even kept secrets? Because I remember I was having a conversation with a friend as to why persons were moved from persons who formerly held cabinet secretary positions, such as Kaimenyi, who we know performed dismally before he was moved to the lands ministry, was in the Ministry of Education, performed very dismally, and is now being awarded a position as is it an ambassador or something? My question was, if you're not giving these people positions, why not just totally do away with them? And the answer I got from this friend of mine is that some of these former cabinet secretaries hold very serious secrets, you know, against the government, and so it's a way to just move them and slowly phase them out. So for me, the question is, if they did not perform well, just do away with them. And the other question becomes also that at the time when this cabinet was being formed, what criteria exactly was used to measure that this person performed well in the previous cabinet and therefore they deserve to be retained, or this person did not perform well and therefore they deserve to be phased out? So for me, such questions come up. Yeah, do we really have a system to measure how well a cabinet secretary performs so that we can comfortably say, you know what, kick them out?
Right. Moses, just briefly, with what she's saying, in this cabinet, the newly formed cabinet, which are some of the dockets that you have confidence in, especially comparing with the previous cabinet?
Actually, I'll tell you, I have confidence in all of this. There has been reshuffles here and there, replacements. So it means he's doing it for the better good of to achieve. He has an agenda. This is his last time. There are things he's seeking to achieve. That's why you see some people have been demoted in the name of being given positions as diplomatic envoys to create space for performance.
All right. So we'll take a short break, but we'll be right back with that discussion. Remember, 22162 is our SMS line. Start with the word news. Tell us if you have confidence in some of the cabinet secretaries that have been newly appointed by the president. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back.